So apparently, your genes can determine whether vitamin D messes with your gut bacteria after menopause, which honestly makes me feel better about blaming my digestive issues on something completely out of my control.
Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nykki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nykki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got some myth busting to do today, even though it's Wednesday. I came across this opinion piece in Stat News that made me pause. 2 experts are asking whether we're blaming too many symptoms on perimenopause. And look, I get why they're concerned. There's definitely a wave of, is this perimenopause, happening online. Every headache, every mood swing, every weird thing your body does gets chalked up to hormones. But I also think there's something else going on. For decades, women's symptoms were dismissed or ignored entirely. So now that we're finally talking about perimenopause, maybe the pendulum has swung the other way. Maybe we're overcorrecting. The experts make a fair point though. Not every symptom that happens to coincide with your 40s is hormone related. Sometimes a headache is just a headache. Sometimes you're tired because you didn't sleep well, not because your estrogen is dropping. And sometimes that joint pain is from sitting at a desk for 10 years, not from menopause. What struck me about their argument is this. When we blame everything on perimenopause, we might actually miss other treatable conditions. If you assume your fatigue is just hormonal and don't get your thyroid checked, you could be suffering unnecessarily. If you write off your mood changes as just perimenopause and don't consider depression or anxiety treatment, same problem. The tricky part is that perimenopause symptoms are real and they're often overlooked by healthcare providers. So we're walking this fine line between advocating for ourselves and not assuming every single thing is hormone related. It's exhausting, honestly. My take, trust your instincts about your body, but also stay curious about other possibilities. Get the full workup, rule things out. Don't let anyone dismiss your symptoms, but don't assume they all have the same cause either. Now, speaking of things we might not have connected to menopause, researchers just published something fascinating about vitamin D and gut bacteria. This study looked at postmenopausal women and found that genetic variants in vitamin D metabolism actually affect the diversity of gut bacteria. I know that sounds super technical, but stay with me because this is actually pretty cool. We already know that gut health changes after menopause. Many women notice digestive issues they never had before. What this research suggests is that some of these changes might be related to how your body processes vitamin D, and that's partly determined by your genetics. The researchers found that certain genetic variants linked to vitamin D metabolism were associated with different patterns of gut bacteria in postmenopausal women, which means your genes might influence how menopause affects your digestive system through this vitamin D pathway. This doesn't mean you should run out and get genetic testing for vitamin D metabolism. But it does add another piece to the puzzle of why some women have more digestive issues after menopause than others. And it reinforces what we already know about vitamin D being important for postmenopausal health. What I find interesting is that this gives us another angle on the gut health conversation. There's so much noise out there about probiotics and gut health fixes, but this research suggests that some of what's happening in your gut might be influenced by factors you can't control, like your genetics and how they interact with hormonal changes. That brings me to something I saw on the menopause subreddit that perfectly illustrates how these changes show up in real life. A woman posted about her palate completely changing during perimenopause. She used to love trying new foods, but now foods she used to enjoy taste wrong or even nauseating. She specifically mentioned seaweed chips that now taste like rust and blood to her. She actually tried to force herself to eat them, thinking she was being a coward, but her body just rejected them completely. The responses were so validating. Women sharing stories about favourite foods suddenly tasting metallic, about textures that used to be fine now being unbearable, about their whole relationship with food changing during this transition. This is one of those symptoms that doesn't get talked about enough. Taste and smell changes during perimenopause and menopause are real, but they're not widely discussed. So when it happens to you, it's easy to think you're going crazy or being overly sensitive. The science behind this makes sense. Estrogen affects your sense of taste and smell. As hormone levels fluctuate and decline, these senses can change too. Some women become more sensitive to certain tastes or smells. Others find that foods taste bland or different than they used to. What I appreciated about this Reddit post is how the woman described trying to push through it, thinking she should just tough it out. But your body is giving you information. If something tastes terrible now when it didn't before, that's not a character flaw. That's a physiological change. And this connects back to the myth-busting conversation. Yes, this is likely related to hormonal changes, but that doesn't mean it's not real or that you should ignore it. It means you might need to adjust your diet, explore new foods that work with your changing palate, or talk to your healthcare provider if the changes are severe. It also doesn't mean you're broken or that this will last forever. Some women find their taste preferences return to normal post-menopause. Others discover new foods they love. Your palate changing doesn't mean your adventurous eating days are over. It might just mean they look different now. I think this is a perfect example of how we need nuanced conversations about menopause symptoms. Not everything is perimenopause, but perimenopause can affect way more than we typically discuss. The key is staying curious about your body while also getting proper medical care when you need it, which raises the question, what other minor symptoms are we not talking about enough?
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.